Welcome to Pacific Resident Theater and to a Bintel Brief. We're so happy to share this bit of history with you today. I'm Marilyn Fox, I'm the artistic director. The performance will be 90 minutes long. Afterwards, if you're watching on our website, just push the button under where you've been watching to join our Zoom after show talkback. Carol Rusoff, the director and adapter of our production, will be there, myself, and of course our wonderful cast of PRT actors. We look forward to seeing you, and now please enjoy a Bintel Brief.
Allebei wil til geweest naar vlammen boy. Allebei wil til geweest naar vlammen boy. En je wil geweest naar vlammen boy. Wil til gegeven je.
Allebei means how I wish, I hope, I pray.
Good evening. My name is Abe Kahan, the first editor of the Jewish Daily Forward, and I'm here to share with you a few of the many thousands of letters which were sent to the advice column over many, many years. We called the Daily Forward's advice column a Bintel Brief, which means in Yiddish, a bundle of letters. Each of these briefs reminds us of the courage of the bewildered Eastern European immigrants who sought refuge in America, and of the dilemmas that face their children. I beg you to remember that real human beings, finding themselves strangers in a new land, were desperate for good advice or just a kind and understanding word in their own language which they could trust in the face of new problems and challenges. The letters awakened in the immigrants of the Lower East Side a desire to unburden their hearts and reveal their own problems. And it caught on quickly. In 1906, and for the first few years, I answered all of the letters myself, and so many that at times I could barely keep up. But I did it with the greatest pleasure because in the letters, one sees a rare panorama of souls across many decades of what we call Yiddishkeit.
1909. Worthy editor.
1967. Dear editor,
30 men.
I am the grandmother.
1908. Worthy editor. Have pity.
1909. Dear editor, as a reader of the forward,
I
am writing about the matter
Dear
that
editor,
interests other people.
this is the voice of
But first, I will tell you a little about myself.
1955. Worthy friend, editor. My wife and I own a candy store which is open 7 days a week and 16 hours a day. And in the 15 years we've been in business, we've managed to save enough money to buy ourselves a small house. 2 years ago, my daughter, who is now finishing her studies to become a nurse, bought me an art kit for my birthday. A small box with pencils and various paints that artists use. She said she got me this present because she knew that 20 years ago I used to enjoy painting and drawing. She told me I should try to paint again, but not to copy other paintings, since I am a little nervous. She said that this might calm my nerves. I was overjoyed with the gift. And in a limited time, when I could tear myself away from the store, I began to paint and draw from nature and life. I even managed to go to an art school for a week. It is impossible for me to describe my pleasure. I painted a lot during those 2 years, and some of my pictures have been accepted for exhibitions. There was even a write-up about me in an English-speaking newspaper. I set up my studio for work in the basement, alongside the cases of seltzer and the boxes of candy and other things. I paint late at night, too, after we close the store. Not too long ago, a businessman from whom I buy merchandise from for the store saw one of my pictures. And since he liked it so much, he invited me to his luxurious home to see his artistic wall paintings he called murals. He asked me if I would be able to paint such murals. I must confess to you that I almost cried because I knew that I could. These paintings were nothing compared to mine. Later on, I showed this businessman a wall painting I did for a neighbor of mine, and now he wants me to paint many murals in his house. He tells me I would be able to make a living painting murals. My wife, my daughter, my friends too, think I should devote myself to painting full time. But I want to hear your opinion of this. Painting is my whole life. But I am already 49 years of age. And perhaps it's too late for someone to become a professional painter of murals. With thanks for your answer, LL.
You are still far from being old, and it's never too late to accomplish something. We could list the names here of many people who in their late years achieved a great deal in various fields and became famous. Meanwhile, however, you should not give up the store. It would be good, though, if you could hire someone to help you in the business so that you could devote more time to painting. You must not give up the painting that gives meaning to your life and brings you so much pleasure. This is for you a newly discovered treasure that is priceless.
1967. Dear Editor, I was born and raised in New York of parents who have read the foreword all these years, and since I spoke Yiddish at home and attended a Yiddish school, I can write this letter to you in Yiddish. Even as a young girl, I read aloud for Mother and Bubby from the Bintel brief. In those days, it never occurred to me that one day I would turn to you for advice. I am 27 years of age and the mother of a 5-year-old. I have a dear, good husband, and we enjoy a happy family life. A few years ago, we bought a nice house in a good neighborhood, and everything is as fine as can be. My problem will seem a little odd to you. I come to you to complain about my mother-in-law because she is too modern for me. In contrast with my mother-in-law, who is 2 years short of 50, I am an old-fashioned woman. When I disagree with her, she herself says that we ought to change places. A few years ago, my mother-in-law lost her husband, and she lived alone for a while. A few months ago, however, she fell ill, and my husband talked her into giving up her home and moving in with us. She listened to him, and I am not happy about it. My mother-in-law doesn't need our financial help. She has money and a good income, but since my husband is her only son and she has no one else, she is happy to live with us. I love my husband, and I love and respect my mother-in-law, but don't laugh at me. We are from two opposite worlds. I like to stay home evenings to read a book, sew or knit, listen to good music, and it's enough for me to go out with my dear husband once a week. I do not smoke, I do not play cards, and strong drinks do not appeal to me. My mother-in-law, however, likes all these things. I keep my home in good order. I like every corner to be clean and everything in place. I get up early and begin immediately to clean the house. Then I get dressed. Even at home, I like to be dressed like a lady. My mother-in-law likes to sleep late, and the moment she gets up, she has a cigarette in her mouth, and everywhere one turns, one sees the ashes and cigarette stubs. She never makes her bed, and her room is always a mess. She doesn't get dressed, but sits down in her bathrobe with her black coffee by the television set. Later, she begins to phone her friends, to plan where to meet them. She goes with them to the beauty parlor. She recently turned from a brunette to a blonde. Another day, they go hunting for bargains in the department store. She runs to cocktail parties, and she plays cards until late at night. Recently, she has started bringing her group of card players to my home, and this I cannot stand. Besides the fact that I can't condone her wasting so much time at cards, I have to spend several days cleaning up after them. I don't want to hurt my dear husband, and so far I haven't spoken to him about this. And I don't want an argument with my mother-in-law. I don't say a word to her because everyone has a right to lead her life as she pleases. But something must be done, and I ask for your advice. Respectfully, the old-fashioned daughter-in-law.
When we read your letter, it really seemed to us that you and your mother-in-law had changed roles. Usually it's the mother-in-law has these complaints about her daughter-in-law. In your case, it's just the opposite. We feel that the fairest way to solve the problem is for your mother-in-law to move out and make a home for herself. If she wants to be near you and your child, she can live in the neighborhood. She's still a young woman and should not have given up her own home. Since she knew well that you conduct your life so differently from hers, she should understand that you could not live together for long. Talk this over with your husband first, and then you should both explain warmly and kindly to your mother-in-law why it is not practical for her to live with you.
1938. Dear editor, I come to you with my family problem because I think you are the only one who can give me practical advice. I came to America when I was very young. I suffered plenty, but that did not keep me from falling in love with a girl from my hometown and marrying her. I harnessed myself to the wagon of family life, and I pulled with all my strength. My wife was faithful, and she gave me a hand in pulling the wagon. The years flew fast, and before we looked around, we were parents of 4 children who brightened and sweetened our lives. The children were dear and smart, and we gave them an education that was more than we could afford. They went to college, became professionals, and are well established. Suddenly, I feel as if the floor has collapsed under my feet. I don't know how to express it, but the fact that my children are well educated and have outgrown me makes me feel bad. I can't talk to them about my problems, and they can't talk to me about theirs. It's as if there were a deep abyss that divides us. People envy me my fine, good, educated children, but I am ashamed to admit it. I I often think it might be better for me if they were not so well educated, but ordinary working men like me. Then we would have more in common. I have no education because my parents were poor, and in the old country they couldn't give me the opportunities that I could give my children. That is my problem. I want to hear your opinion about it. I enclose my full name and address, but please, please, please do not print it. I will sign as disappointed.
It is truly a pleasure to have such children, and the father can really be envied. But he must not feel he has nothing in common with them any longer because they have more education than he. There should be no chasm between father and children. And if there is, perhaps he himself created it. In thousands of Jewish immigrant homes, such educated children have grown up, and many of them remain close to their parents. Also, there's no reason why the writer of this letter should not be able to talk to his fine, good children about various problems, even though they are professionals and have outdistanced him in their education.
1941. Dear Editor, my husband and I came from Galicia right after we were married to America 33 years ago. At home, I had received a secular education and my husband had been ordained as a Rebbe. However, he did not want to be a Rebbe when we came here, so since we had brought over a little money from home, we bought a small business and made a good living. My husband is religious, but not a fanatic. I am more liberal, but I go to shul with him on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We have 5 children, 2 boys and 3 girls. The boys went to Talmud Torah, and the girls too had a Jewish education. We always kept a Jewish home and a kosher kitchen. My eldest son is a college teacher, tutors students privately, makes a good deal of money. He's married with 2 children, 4 and 7 years old. They live in a fine neighborhood, and we visit them often. It happened that on Christmas Eve, we were invited to have dinner with friends who live near my son and daughter-in-law. So after the meal, we decided to pay them a visit. I called up. My daughter-in-law answered the telephone and warmly invited us over. When we opened the door and walked into the living room, we saw a large Christmas tree, which my son was decorating with the help of his 2 small children. When my husband saw this, he turned white, and the little grandchildren ran over to us saying, "Merry Christmas, we're delighted to see us." Well, I wanted to take off my coat, but my husband gave me a look that we were to leave immediately. Well, I had to leave at once, and our sons and daughter-in-laws talking and pleading didn't help, because my husband didn't want to stay there another minute. He is so angry over the Christmas tree that he doesn't want to ever step over the threshold of his home again. My son justifies himself by saying that he takes in the tree for the sake of his children so that they won't feel left out with all the other non-Jewish kids in the neighborhood. He assures us it has nothing to do with religion, and he feels his father has no right to be angry over it. But my husband is a Kohen. And besides being stubborn, he also has a temper too. but I don't want him to be angry at us, son. Therefore, I would like to hear your opinion on it. With great respect, a reader from the Bronx.
The national American holidays are celebrated here with love and joy by Jews and Gentiles alike. But Christmas is the most religious Christian holiday, and Jews should have nothing to do with it. Jews, religious or not, should respect the Christmas holidays. But to celebrate it is like dancing at a stranger's wedding. It is natural that a Jew who observes all the Jewish traditions should be opposed to seeing his son and grandchildren trimming a Christmas tree. But he must not quarrel with his son. It is actually your husband's fault because he probably did not instill the Jewish traditions in his son. Instead of being angry with him, he should talk to his son and explain to him the meaning of the holidays.
1906. Dear editor, I too want to take advantage of this opportunity to tell about my troubles, and I ask you to answer me. 8 months ago, I brought my girlfriend from Russia to the States. We had been in love for 7 years and were married shortly after her arrival. We were very happy together until my wife became ill. She was taken to the hospital, but after a few days was sent home. At home she became worse, and there was no one to tend her. You can hardly imagine our bitter lot. I had to work all day in the shop, and my wife lay alone at home. Once when I came home at dinner time, I heard my wife singing in a changed, hoarse voice. I was terrified. When I ran to her, I saw she was out of her head with fever. Imagine how I felt. My wife was so ill, and I was supposed to run back to the shop because the last whistle was about to blow. Everybody was rushing back to work, but I could not leave. I knew my boss would fire me. He had warned me the day before that if I did not come on time, he would not let me in. But how could I think of work now when my wife was so ill? Yet without the job, what would happen? There would not be a penny coming in the house. I stayed at my wife's bedside and did not move till 4 o'clock. Suddenly I jumped up and began to run around the room in despair. My wife singing and crying drove me insane. Like a madman, I ran to the door and locked it. I leapt for the gas jet and opened the valve, then lay down next to my wife and embraced her. In a few minutes, I was nearer death than she. Suddenly, my wife cried out, "Water, water!" I dragged myself from the bed. With my last ounce of strength, I crept to the door and opened it, closed the gas valve, and when I came to, gave her milk instead of water. She finished the glass full and wanted more, but there was no more, so I brought her some seltzer. I revived myself with water, and both of us slowly recovered. The next morning, they took my wife to the hospital, and after a stay of 14 days, she got well. Now I am happy we are alive, but I keep thinking of what almost happened to us. Until now, I never told anyone about it, but it bothers me. I have no secrets from my wife, and I want to know whether I should now tell her all or not mention it. I beg you to answer me. The newborn.
This letter depicting the sad life of the worker is more powerful than any protest against inequality between rich and poor. The advice to the writer is that he should not tell his wife that he almost ended both of their lives, This secret may be withheld from his beloved wife because it is clear he keeps it from her out of love.
1944. Worthy editor, I'll make this as short as possible. We have 2 sons, 9 and 7 years old. They are both healthy, well-built, and are doing well in public school and Hebrew school, so you would think everything is fine. But I have trouble with the older boy. About 9 months ago, he took it into his head to become a vegetarian and stopped eating meat. At first, I thought he was tired of meat and would soon forget about his vegetarianism. For a few weeks, I fed him other foods and then served him meat again. But he wouldn't touch it. Not only that, as soon as he smelled meat cooking, he wouldn't even come into the kitchen. My husband was home at the time, and we took our son to a doctor who examined him and told us he was all right. He said we should have patience with the boy, and in time he would start eating meat again. But there is no end to it. He is stubborn. Not only does he refuse meat, he won't even eat fish or sardines. He refuses to eat anything that was once alive. Worthy editor, advise me what to do. I am afraid my son will grow up to be sickly if he doesn't eat meat. When my husband was home, we took him to a restaurant so he could see that everyone eats meat, and we hoped it would awaken his appetite for meat dishes. But it didn't help. What should we do? With thanks for your time, the worried mother.
The mother is advised to find out where her son got the idea to become a vegetarian. And then, with the aid of a specialist, she might be able to bring him back to eating meat and fish. She is calmed and assured that a good doctor would know how to treat her 9-year-old vegetarian, and in time her son would begin to eat meat again.
Dear editor, a short time ago, your newspaper printed a letter from a mother who complained about her great misfortune that a 9-year-old son had become a vegetarian. Well, the mother asked for your advice, and we wonder why you did not recommend that she contact us, the Jewish Vegetarian Society of New York. Instead of introducing her to the large family of vegetarians here in New York, you advised her to take the boy to a doctor who would find a way to induce him to eat meat again. As a vegetarian for 30 years, who has raised 3 children as vegetarians in the best of health, I want to tell this mother that her fear of vegetarianism is groundless. Well, on the contrary, it is important that young children should eat less meat. Well, I know doctors who say that children up to the age of 6 do not even need meat. Not only in America, but all over the world, there are many vegetarians who bring up their children this way, especially in England. Well, now that there's a war going on, there's food rationing, and vegetarianism is widespread. The British food minister has on many occasions praised the vegetarian's diet and advised the masses to use it. With regards, the president of the Jewish Vegetarian Society of New York.
"1906. Honorable editor, I have a grievous wound in my heart, and maybe through the Bintel brief will find relief. I am a young woman. I was happily married, but a year ago death suddenly took my husband. He was handsome, and I am considered attractive. We were in love, and faithful to each other in the full sense of the word. When he died and left me with our daughter, 15 years of age, my world collapsed. I was in despair, but not for financial reasons. My husband left a generous policy, and I run a successful business. I cried till my eyes were swollen. When they laid my dear husband in the coffin and took it out of the house, I fainted 4 times. In the carriage to the cemetery, I sat in a daze. My husband's dear friend was with me. When they covered my husband's coffin, I became hysterical. I screamed and tried to stop them. Finally, they dragged me away from the grave, and they calmed me down. My husband's friend did not leave my side. The friend was not handsome, not like my husband, and he had never shown the least interest in me as a woman, nor had I ever thought of him as anything but a friend. Suddenly this changed. I don't know how it happened, but during this ride home from the cemetery, I was alone in the carriage with my husband's friend. He told me later it was pure chance. In the carriage, I began to cry again, and he comforted me. He patted my hands, and he begged me not to endanger my health. As if in a dream, I thought, isn't this more than friendly sympathy? Isn't this perhaps the interest of a man for a woman? In my sorrow and confusion, I did not know what was happening to me. As he comforted me, the friend began to kiss my hands. I looked at him in amazement. Instead of drawing back, though, he stroked my hair, and he swore that he felt toward his dead friend's wife as toward an unhappy sister. He spoke with tears in his eyes. He drew me to him and he kissed me passionately. Those were passionate kisses from a man to a woman, but they were mingled with his tears for the death of his dear friend and for my fate. Oh, I had no will to protest. He held me and kissed me again and again. I heard words of love from him. I felt like a sinner. When I got home, I was afraid to look my daughter in the eyes. I imagined I heard my husband calling me hypocrite and saying my tears were false. The next morning, my husband's friend came to the house. He cried bitterly, and he told me he felt like a traitor, but he loved me so much that he would waste away if I did not become his. He begged me in his friend's name to marry him, and he would show his faithfulness to his friend's family. Oh, dear editor, I swear that in my heart there was only love for my husband. But I am a weak woman. I could not fight against those passionate pleas and kisses. I was helpless, and I gave him my word when my husband was barely 2 weeks in the grave. I told him I would marry him in a year after my husband's death. But I feel guilty. My daughter, with tears in her eyes, blurted out that her father's grave was not an hour old, and I had already taken another bridegroom. Her words hurt me, and I had no answer. But in time, she has accepted him. My close friends advise me to marry my husband's friend, and I will do so, because I know he will be good to my daughter and to me. But before the wedding, I would like to know your opinion on all that has happened to me. Sincerely, B.V.
The woman's excuse that she was unable to protest against the passionate advances of her husband's friend is a weak one. Better if she had opened the carriage door and asked him to get out. There is no excuse for the disgusting behavior of the young man. He should not have acted so shamefully after his friend's death. It is possible that the widow is making a mistake in deciding to marry him because it is doubtful whether she can be happy with such a man.
1910. Worthy editor, my husband deserted me and my 3 small children, leaving us in desperate need. I was left without a bit of bread for my children, with debts in the grocery store and butcher shop, and with last month's rent unpaid. I am not complaining so much about him abandoning me, but about the grief and suffering to my poor children who beg me for bread which I cannot give them. I am young and healthy. I am willing and able to work to support my children, But unfortunately, I am tied down because my baby is only 6 months old. I would like to find an institution to take care of my baby, but my friends, they advise against it. The local Jewish welfare agencies would let my children and me die of hunger, and this is because my faithful husband brought us from Canada just 4 months ago, so I do not yet deserve to eat their bread. It breaks my heart. But I have come to the conclusion that in order to save my children, I will have to give them away. I will sell my children. I will sell my beautiful children. Not for money, but for bread. And so they will be secure and be safe from hunger and cold. The unhappy young mother, will sign a contract with my heart's blood, stating that my children belong to the good people who will treat them tenderly. Those who are willing and able to take care of my children may apply to me. Respectfully, Mrs. P. Chicago.
What kind of a society are we living in that forces a mother to such desperate straits that there is no other way out than to sell her 3 children for a piece of bread? Isn't this enough to kindle a hellish fire of hatred in every human heart for such a system? The first to be damned is the heartless father, but who knows what's wrong with him? Perhaps he too is unhappy. We hope, though, that this letter will reach him and he will return to aid them. We also hope our friends and readers will take an interest in this unfortunate woman and to help her so that she herself can be mother to her children.
1908. Dear editor, I ask you to give me some advice on my situation. I am a young man of 25, 16 years in America, and I recently met a fine girl. She has a flaw, however, that keeps me from marrying her. The fault is that she has a dimple in her chin, and it is said that people who have this lose their first husband or wife. At first, I laughed at this idea, but then it began to bother me. I began to observe people with dimpled chins, and I found out that their first husbands or wives really had died prematurely. I became so interested in this that now whenever I see someone with this defect, I ask about it immediately. And I find out that some of the men have lost their first wives, and some of the women, their first husbands are dead. This upset me so much that I don't know what to do. I cannot leave my sweetheart. I love her very much, but I am afraid to marry her, lest I die because of the dimple. I have questioned many people. Some say it is true. Others, they laugh at the idea. Perhaps you two will laugh at me for being such a fool and for believing such nonsense. But I cannot rest until I hear your opinion. I want to add that my sweetheart knows nothing about this. Respectfully, the unhappy fool.
The tragedy is not that the girl has a dimple in her chin, but that some people have a screw loose in their heads. One would need the knowledge of a genius to explain how a dimple in the chin could drive a husband or wife to the grave. Does the angel of death sit hiding in the dimple? It seems to us that it is a beauty spot, and we never imagined it could house the devil. It's tragic humor to find such superstition in the world today. It's truly shameful that a young man who's living in America should ask such questions. To calm him, we wish to tell him we know many people with such dimples who have not lost their first husbands or wives, but live out their years together in great happiness.
1920. Dear Editor, I write you this letter because I want your opinion about the behavior of a woman I'm acquainted with who belongs to progressive groups and considers herself a radical. Not long ago, the couple invited me to their home, and I spent a pleasant evening with them. When it was time to eat supper, everyone went into the dining room to eat at the table, and the poor woman who worked for them ate in the kitchen. Since I know the couple, and I know they consider themselves to be radical people, I wondered why the servant didn't eat with us in the dining room. I took the liberty of telling my friend she ought to ask the woman to eat with us at the table. Then my friend answered me, it must be that way. The woman who works for us must eat separately. For me, this is not the right answer. Because it seems to me that the one of us does not seem to understand the ethics and the morals of the socialist standpoint. Therefore, I would like you to explain to us which one is right. With socialist regards, a reader.
We are in agreement with the writer and not with her friend. Progressive people should not discriminate between the servant and members of the family. When everyone eats in the dining room and the maid is left sitting in the kitchen, they are wronging her because this is degrading.
1908. Dear Editor, I am one of those unfortunates who for many years has suffered from the worker's disease. The times and conditions have taught me to be patient and to endure the pain. I am the father of a 3-year-old little girl. A clever, pretty child who attracts everyone's attention. All who know my child hug and kiss her, but I may not. I know this all too well. Yet I can't keep myself from kissing my little girl. Every time I hold my child in my arms and kiss her, my conscience bothers me. I promise myself I will not do it again, but I am overcome by weakness. This bothers me more than the suffering from the consumption because I know that I am infecting my innocent child. Every time I kiss my little girl, I feel my wife's eyes on me as if she wants to scream, "Murderer!" But she doesn't utter a word. Only her face reddens. It is then that I feel the battle inside of her. She closes her lips and remains silent. She tries to keep the child away from me, but she doesn't want to hurt me. My wife's suffering only deepens my pain. What can I do to control myself? I beg you to advise me how to act. Thank you in advance. An unhappy father.
It is heartbreaking for us to have to tell this unhappy father, control yourself and do not kiss your dear child. This is the only advice we can give him. He must discipline himself. The father could live a long life with his ailment. With good treatment, consumptives can live out their years, and he might yet live to have great pleasure from his little daughter.
(1909). Worthy Editor, I often spend time with a group of 40 people, 30 men and 10 women. Among them are religious and non-religious people, and we do not pass the time in idle discussions. Recently, we read a report in a newspaper about the movement to give women the right to vote. For the past few weeks, we have been carrying on a debate about it. I am one of the group that is in favor of giving women full rights, but most of the others are against it. The opposed argue that it would be very bad to let women get to the ballot box because it would destroy their family life. The woman would then no longer be the housewife, the mother to her children, the wife to her husband. In a word, everything would be destroyed. A woman must not mix in politics, they say. She was created to be dependent on man, to obey him, to love him, to supply all of his comforts, and be a mother to his children. But the question arises, must the woman then be considered a slave, and the man the master? Isn't it obvious then that women in many cases show themselves to be cleverer than men? These same men who recently celebrated the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln for having freed the Negro slaves now talk with a satirical grin about women's freedom. Just as the opponents of the socialist movement point out that socialism will be harmful, so those who argue against voting rights for women say this will destroy family life. This is not so, because a woman is a human being just like a man. The capabilities that women have already shown confirm this. Plenty of facts can be cited from the past, and if women are recognized as human beings, they must also be granted all the rights of human beings. I think that if women are considered human beings with all their rights, then family life would be better and richer. With socialist regards, LV.
The arguments against the opponents of women's rights are very good ones. The fact is that many intelligent women are already taking part in various activities, and they still remain excellent homemakers. Justice can reign among people only when all have equal rights. Those men who are opposed to giving women the same rights they possess are acting from tyrannical instincts because they actually want to rule the women.
1933. Worthy Editor, though my husband is a Zionist, and I used to be a member of the Bund, already we have celebrated our silver wedding anniversary and lived the quarter century happily together. We have 5 children with whom all parents would consider themselves blessed. We gave them a good education, we sent them to college, and they are all good and bright and cultured. We are in business, and until the Depression, we made a good living. 2 of our children are already married. One boy, 18 years old, is studying at City College. One works in a department store with a college diploma in his pocket and earns such poor wages, it's a shame to talk about it. But what can one do when even this job was hard for him to get? Our 21-year-old daughter did something that my husband, the Zionist, cannot stand. And this is why I am writing this letter to you. Our daughter graduated from college with high honors, but this did not help her find a job. She couldn't find work for a long time. But then 2 months ago, she got a very good job in an insurance company, and she brings home a check for $35 every week. We should be satisfied. Yet, our world has turned upside down since she got the job. My husband is very upset because in order to get the job, my daughter had to give her religion as Episcopalian. If they had known she was Jewish, they wouldn't have hired her. She doesn't have typically Jewish features, and from her appearance, she can be taken for a Christian. One of my sons said she also had to get a recommendation from a priest, because lately many Jewish girls are saying they are Christian in order to get a job. Now, my whole house is topsy-turvy. My husband insists that by all means she should give up the job. Our family is now divided into two sides. One side feels that she hasn't committed a crime and she hasn't wronged anyone. As far as her own conscience goes, not so terrible. Was it better to go around jobless and having to come to a father or mother for $1? I feel that I myself, I wouldn't do it, but I'm sympathetic to my daughter. My husband is terribly upset about the whole thing. We would like your opinion about our daughter's actions. You troubled readers, F and G.
The father is entirely right in his stand against his daughter's actions, and his feelings about it are not necessarily caused by his being a Zionist. A Jewish father, whether he's a socialist or a free thinker, would also be against having his daughter posing as a Christian in order to get a job. But the fact that the girl is already 21 years old, she certainly doesn't deserve a compliment for her dishonest behavior. But she has the right to do as she wishes. Companies that do not hire Jews, though they have a large Jewish patronage, should be condemned.
1908. Worthy editor, have pity on me and my 2 small children, and print my letter in the forward. Max, the children and I now say farewell to you. You left us in such a terrible state. You had no compassion for us. For 6 years I loved you faithfully, took care of you like a loyal servant. I never had a happy day with you. Yet I forgive you for everything. Have you ever asked yourself why you left us? Max, where is your conscience? You used to have sympathy for the forsaken women and say their terrible plight was due to the men who left them in dire need. And how did you act? I was a young, educated, decent girl when you took me. You lived with me for 6 years, during which time I bore you 4 children, and then you left me. Of the 4 children, only 2 remain. But you have made them orphans. Who will bring them up? Who will support us? Have you no pity for your own flesh and blood? Consider what you are doing. My tears choke me, and I cannot write more. Be advised that in several days I am leaving with my 2 living orphans for Russia. We say farewell to you and beg you to have pity on us and send us enough to live on. Your deserted wife and children.
The wife and mother is encouraged to stay in America, where she may discover strength and independence. There is assistance, charities, and aid bureaus, including the Jewish Information Agency, available to her. Your children will benefit from the life you make from them in your new country.
1910. Dear Editor, this is the voice of 37 miserable men who are buried but not covered over by earth, tied down but not in chains, silent but not mute, whose hearts beat like humans yet are not like other human beings. When we look at our ragged clothes and our dirty, narrow cots, at our fellow companions in the cells, the beaten, lowest members of society who long ago lost their human dignity, the blood freezes in our veins. Why are we confined here? For the horrible crime of being poor, not being able to satisfy the mad whims of our wives. That's why we pine away here, stamped with the name convict. That's why we are despised, robbed of our freedom, and treated like dogs. We ask you, worthy editor, to publish our letter so your readers, especially the women, will know how we live here. This letter is written not with ink, but with our heart's blood. We are coughing from the polluted air that we breathe in the cells. Our bones ache from lying on the hard cots, and we get stomach aches from the food they give us. The non-support plague is the worst plague of all. For the merest nonsense, a man is caught and committed to the workhouse. He doesn't even get a chance to defend himself. Even during the worst times of the Russian reaction, people didn't suffer as the men suffer here in America because of their wives. For a Jewish wife, it's as easy here to condemn her husband to imprisonment as it is for her to try on a pair of gloves. In all the world, there isn't such legal injustice as here in the alimony courts. What do they think, these women? If they believe that the imprisoned husbands, after the 6 months, will become purified and come out good, sweet, and loving, they're making a big mistake. The worst offense is committed by the Jewish charity organizations. They sympathize with the wife when her husband is in jail. They forget, however, that they manufacture the grass widows and living orphans when they help the woman. But as soon as the wife tastes an easy free dollar, as soon as she discovers that the charities won't let her starve, well, she doesn't care that her husband is condemned. She lives a gay life, enjoys herself, and doesn't think of her husband. Therefore, it is your duty, as editor of The Forward, the newspaper that is read by the working class, to warn all the Jewish women not take such revenge on their husbands. They do more harm to themselves than to their men. They drive away their husbands for life that way and make themselves and their children miserable. Finally, I appeal to all the women whose husbands are in prison for non-support in the workhouse on Blackwell's Island prison, and I write to them as follows. Their husbands have sworn here that if they, the women, do not have them released in time for Pesach, they will never again return. And the women will remain grass widows forever. We ask you to publish this letter immediately. Respectfully, 37 men.
The answer emphasizes the fact that a great number of men who avoid supporting their wives and children commit a serious crime. True, sending them to prison doesn't have the desired effect, but they deserve to be punished for not doing their duty. It certainly doesn't pay for the women to have their husbands arrested for the little bit of charity they get. It's ridiculous to think they can live a gay life on that pittance. Finally, the women are advised to see to it that their husbands are released for Pesach.
1914. Dear editor, I am a young girl, just 22 years of age, but I've already lived a great deal in my life. By the time I was 3, both my parents had already died. My grandmother took me in, and soon she gave me to a poor tailor's wife. When I grew up, the tailor taught me to hand sew and machine sewing too. When grandmother died, she gave me her small house, and the rabbi sold it for me and gave it the money. In time, one of the tailor's apprentices, he fell in love with me, and I did not reject his love. He was a fine, honest, quiet man and a good earner. Soon my bridegroom came to me with a plan that we would go to America, and I agreed. In America, my bridegroom got a job immediately, and he supported me. He was faithful and devoted. For example, one summer in the terrible heat, I slept on the roof, and it started to rain, and I was soaked, and I had to be rushed to the hospital, and the only way I could be saved was by blood transfusion. My bridegroom, he gave me his blood, and thanks to him, I recovered. In time, I went to work at the famous Triangle Factory, and my bridegroom, he got a job there too, because even in work, he wants to be near me. He said to me, we will work hard for a while, and then we will get married. But then that terrible fire happened that took 147 young blossoming lives. When the fire broke out, this yelling, this screaming, it was terrible. It bewildered me. I saw the angel of death before me, and I tried to scream, but my voice had choked in my throat. Then somebody scooped me up and took me out of the shop. On the street, I recovered. I saw my bridegroom near me. I was rescued. But then I look up, I see my girlfriends jumping out the building, falling to the ground. And my bridegroom says to me, I must go save other girls, and this is the last time I see him alive. It is 4 years now that I am alone. But I can still see the scenes of this terrible fire, and I still see the face of my bridegroom and the blackbird facing the morgue. I am weak and nervous, and yet there is a young man who would like to marry me. But I made a vow never to marry again, and I am afraid that I can never love another man. But this young man, he doesn't want to leave me. My friends, they tell me to marry this man and that everything will be okay. But I do not believe it, because I do not think everything can be okay for me. Only in the grave. I am writing to you to ask for your opinion. Respectfully, a faithful reader.
It is senseless for this girl to sacrifice her life in memory of her faithful bridegroom, because this would not bring him back to life. Was de Erd kommen, müssen sie vergessen. What the earth covers must be forgotten. She has suffered enough in her life already and is advised to take herself in hand and begin her life anew.
1908. Dear Mr. Editor, things are going well for me. I make a living. I never did anyone a wrong that would be on my conscience, and yet I come to you for advice. I'm a barber. I've been cutting hair for 50 years. People come to me. Sounds good, yes? But a few weeks ago, on a quiet afternoon, there were no customers. My young boss was out somewhere. I was reading the Police Gazette and dozing, and I dreamed. A customer came into the shop. As usual, my young boss and I stood near our chairs, and as usual, the customer chose the chair manned by my boss. I was a little insulted as a craftsman and a bit annoyed at losing my tip, but then it happened. My boss was called away in a hurry, and he asked me to tend to the customer, so I began to work on him, and he laughed in my face. He made insulting gestures. He stuck his tongue out at me. He began to yell at me. And I was holding the razor. He called me a clumsy barber. I slit his throat. And there was screaming, yelling. I woke up. I spat 3 times to banish the dream. But my dear editor, this may seem strange or like a story created by a sick imagination, but what I write here is the truth. Since my foolish dream, I cannot rest. I can't forget the scene. I can't. My thoughts are always obsessed. I can't get the dream out of my head. When I stand at my work, I'm afraid that I will do what I did in the dream. When my razor is under the chin, close to the neck, it's terrible. I'm afraid that I will go mad. I tried staying home for 2 days from work, but I can't get the thoughts out of my head. I haven't told anyone yet because I am ashamed. I beg you to give me your advice. Should I give up my job? I'm willing to do anything to end this suffering. I beg you to give me your opinion. Is it madness? With the greatest respect, mad, Baba?
Every man can dream he commits a terrible crime, because in the dreams the controllable will is slumbering. The writer of this letter must simply laugh off the dream and drive the whole matter out of his head. But if his nervous system is for some reason weakened, and therefore his control over his willpower likewise weak, he must consult a doctor. But he himself must be strong and overcome his impulse.
1967. Dear Editor, I am the grandmother of a 21-year-old girl, a girl with all the finest qualities, and I'm writing to you about a problem with her. Our granddaughter met a boy about 6 months ago, a boy a few years older than she. They fell in love and are already talking about marriage. The boy is very refined, from a good and wealthy family. He'll be graduating from college this year, and everything would be all right if not for a but. our son and daughter-in-law, the parents of the bride-to-be, belong to a Reform temple, brought up their daughter in the same tradition. The boy, however, comes from an Orthodox family who conform strictly to the Jewish code. In his home, the phone is not answered on the Sabbath, and on Friday night, the electricity is controlled by an automatic clock. To our granddaughter, all this was new and strange. But when she fell in love with the boy and began visiting his home, she came to love his way of life. It has gone so far that she does not ride on Saturday or eat meat at her parents' home because she knows her mother does not keep a kosher kitchen. And she even wants to reform her parents. And since my husband and I are not Orthodox either, she has been complaining to us too. She would like her boyfriend to be able to eat in her home. And this means that she wants her mother to keep a kosher kitchen. There are many quarrels about this because my daughter-in-law won't hear of making such changes. She is generally indifferent to Judaism, and she would prefer to break up the match. The girl is considering moving out of her home because she doesn't want to eat non-kosher food. The question is how to handle the situation. And I ask you to answer immediately. Watching for your answer, Mrs. Beavy.
Your granddaughter's boyfriend's strict religious background need not be a hindrance to marriage. He is a decent boy, and your granddaughter loves him. A new belief in Orthodox Judaism should be considered a virtue, not a fault. Your son, daughter-in-law, and the entire family should not oppose the match. When your granddaughter marries the young man, she'll be able to run her own home as she pleases. But she cannot and should not demand of her parents that they should change their way of life for her boyfriend's sake. Your granddaughter and her parents, even you, must restrain yourselves from giving each other advice on how to live. This is the time for tolerance, and you must all understand it.
1923. Worthy Mr. Editor, I was born in a small town in Russia, and my mother brought me up alone because I had lost my father when I was a child. My dear mother used all her energies to give me a proper education. A pogrom broke out, and my mother was the first victim of the bloodbath. They spared no one, and no one was left for me. But that wasn't enough for the murderers. They robbed me of my honor. I begged them to kill me instead, but they let me live in suffering and grief. After that, there were long days and nights of loneliness and grief. I was alone, despondent and homeless, until relatives in America brought me over. But my wounded heart found no cure here either. Here I am lonely too, and no one cares. I am dejected without a ray of hope, because all of my former dreams for the future are shattered. A few months ago, however, I met a young man, a refined and decent man. It didn't take long before we fell in love. He has already proposed marriage, and he is now waiting for my answer. I want to marry this man, but I keep putting off giving him an answer because I can't tell him the secret that weighs on my heart and bothers my conscience. I have no rest, and I am almost going out of my mind. When my friend comes to hear my answer, I want to tell him everything, let him know everything. I've bottled up the pain inside me long enough. Let him hear all and then decide. But I have no words and can tell him nothing. I hope you will advise me and tell me what I can do. I thank you. A reader.
In the pogroms, in the great Jewish disasters, this misfortune befell many Jewish girls like you. But you must not feel guilty and not be so dejected, because you are innocent. A man who can understand and sympathize can be told everything. If your friend is one of these people and he really loves you, he will cherish you even after he learns your secret. Since we do not know your friend, it is hard for us to advise you whether to tell him everything now or not. In this matter, you must take more responsibility unto yourself. You know the man, and you must know if he will be able to understand.
$1910. Dear Editor, since I do not want my conscience to bother me, I ask you to decide. Does a married woman have the right to go to school 2 evenings a week? My husband thinks I have no right to do this. I admit that I cannot be satisfied to be just a wife and mother. I am still young, and I want to learn and enjoy life. My children and my house are not neglected, but I go to evening high school twice a week. My husband is not pleased. And when I come home at night and ring the bell, he lets me stand outside a long time intentionally and doesn't hurry to open the door. Now he has announced a new decision. Because I send out the laundry to be done, he has decided that I have too much time for myself, enough time to go to school. So from now on, he will count out every penny for everything I have to buy for the house. So I will not be able to send out the washing anymore. And when I have to do the work myself, I will no longer have time for such foolishness as going to school. I told him that I will do the washing myself, but I will still be able to find time for study. When I am alone with my thoughts, I feel I may not be right. Perhaps I should not go to school. I want to say my husband is an intelligent man who wanted to marry a woman who is educated. The fact that he is intelligent makes me more annoyed with him. He is in favor of the emancipation of women, yet in real life, he acts contrary to his beliefs. Awaiting your opinion on this, I remain your reader, the discontented wife.
Since this man is an intelligent man and an adherent of the women's emancipation movement, he is scolded severely for wanting to keep his wife so enslaved. The wife absolutely has the right to go to school 2 evenings a week.
1953. Worthy Mr. Editor, I write you this letter for the sake of my parents, who are readers of your newspaper, and because I know that they will accept your opinion. I have to write in English because my Yiddish is not too good. My problem is not a new one. I am a young man, American-born, raised by religious parents who immigrated from Europe. During the past few years, I went out with nice, attractive Jewish girls, but I fell in love with none of them. I waited for my true love, and as if for spite, the girl is not Jewish. I went out with her once, and we fell in love. This Gentile girl is refined, has a good character, and many fine qualities. I could write a lot about her, but what good would it do? You yourself know what words can be used by someone deeply in love. I expected my religious parents would oppose my marrying a non-Jewish girl, but I can't understand their attitude. If they told me they didn't want to see me anymore, have anything to do with me, it would hurt me because I love my parents, but I would still have hope that in time they would forgive me and we would be close again. But when I told them about this girl, they warned me that if I married her, they would commit suicide. And knowing my parents, I'm afraid. They say it will be a terrible shame and a heartache, and that they will have nothing to live for anymore. Worthy editor, I know that many mixed marriages are unhappy, but I feel I would be happy with this girl. Therefore, I ask you to explain to them that they must rid themselves of these thoughts and stop talking about suicide, even though they are very grieved. I am very disturbed by their talk. This girl is as dear to me as life itself, and I don't know what to do. Thank you very much for your answer. Respectfully, D.F.
Yes. We are of the opinion that you should not marry the non-Jewish girl. You should break off the match, not only for the sake of your parents, but for your own too. Because you and the girl are from two different worlds. Even if your parents stop talking about suicide, you would become a stranger to them and the whole family forever. Since you were raised in a religious home, you would not be able to live harmoniously with a Gentile wife and would feel like a stranger in her family. Love alone cannot fill a life. Consider this matter thoroughly before it is too late.
1914. Worthy Mr. Editor, I, an old woman of 70, write you this letter with my heart's blood because I am distressed. In Galicia, I was a respected housewife, and my husband was a well-known businessman. God blessed us with 3 daughters and 3 sons, and we raised them properly. When they grew up, one by one they left home like birds, leaving the nest. My daughters got married and later went to America with their husbands. My oldest son also married, but a month after his wedding, a misfortune befell us. He went swimming and was drowned. This tragedy had such a bad effect on my husband that he neglected his business, began to ail, and he died. My 2 sons went to America after that, and I was left alone. I longed for my children, and I wrote them that I want to come to America to be with them and the grandchildren. But right from the first, they write me, America is not for me, that they do not keep kosher, and I would be better off staying at home. But I did not let them convince me, and I came to America. All my children came to the boat to meet me. And I will never forget that moment when they and my grandchildren hugged me and kissed me. Is there any greater happiness for a mother? Oh, but now a new trouble has fallen on me. A few weeks ago, when Austria declared war and Russia said they were fighting against Austria, my two sons, who are ardent patriots of Kaiser Franz Joseph, announced that they were sailing home to help in the war. When I heard this, I began to cry, and I begged them not to rush into the fire because they would be shortening my life. But so far, they have not given up the idea to go to fight for the Kaiser. Worthy editor, I hope you will voice your opinion on this serious matter. Maybe you can influence them to give up the idea of leaving this country and their old mother and going to war. Your reader, the suffering mother.
The woman's two sons should thank God they are in America, where they can't be forced to shed their blood for the Austrian Kaiser.
1909. Dear Editor, as a reader of the foreword, I am writing to you about a matter that will interest other people too. But first, I will tell you a little about myself. I am 27 years of age, have lived in the country 10 years, and am still single. I have worked here at various trades, but never very long at one job. I enjoy traveling and seeing what's going on in the country. Now I've decided it's time to marry and settle down. I came to North Dakota, where most people make their living from farming. But there are no Jews here. I started to work on a farm, and I learned farming. I like this kind of life. And after working a year and a half, I rented the farm for myself. My capital was small, but Gentile neighbors helped me. I went into debt for $1,300, but by the end of the summer, I had paid back almost all of my debts. I wrote to a friend about joining me. He and his wife came, and we worked together. We carry on an independent life, have none of the problems of city life, because we always have our own potatoes and butter and cheese, milk, chickens, a good home, and are content. This winter, I went to Chicago and stayed a few weeks with friends. Most of my friends called me an idiot and told me they could not understand how a young, capable fellow like me became a farmer and lead such a lonely life. Of all the girls who would have gladly married me before, not one was interested in going back to the farm with me. But this did not discourage me. I returned to the farm, and I am now preparing for the spring season. However, I want to ask you, did my friends have a right to call me idiot? Is there any logic in their argument? Please answer me. Thank you. The Jewish farmer.
There is nothing to be ashamed of in living in the lap of nature. Many people dream of becoming farmers. The cities are full of many diseases that are unheard of on farms. Tuberculosis, for instance, is a disease of the big cities. People in urban areas grow old and gray at 40, but most of the farmers are healthy and strong and live to be 80 and 90. The debates between country people and city people about which is the better life are nothing new. It's a matter of choice.
Dear friend editor, as I was sitting with a group of old friends who were nostalgically speaking about the good old days, I interrupted with a question. Were the good old days really that good?
I still remember my hometown in Russia. Our simple little house lighted at night by a small kerosene lamp. The door thatched with straw, nailed down with sackcloth to keep it warm at night.
I still remember the mud in the town so deep that you couldn't get around. The fear of the Gentiles.
And who can forget the poverty? The times when there wasn't even a crust of bread.
When we came to New York, we thought we were entering heaven.
But in the new land in those old days, we lived on the east side in tenements and had to climb to the 4th or 5th floor to tiny rooms that were dark and airless.
There were no bathrooms in the flats.
A large bathtub stood in the kitchen near the old iron stove that was heated with coal, in which the mothers also did the laundry.
In those good days, we worked in the shops 14, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. And the bosses treated the workers like slaves.
Summertime in the great heat. We couldn't breathe in the house. We slept outside on sidewalks and rooftops.
When I think of the modern conveniences we live with now, of the wonderful inventions, achievements in various fields that we enjoy,
And about the opportunities for everyone in this blessed country.
There's nothing to be nostalgic about. We now have the good times, and we do not have to long for the past.
So what do you think? Are we in such good times today that we should just be glad we're not back in Russia or in the tenements on the Lower East Side? Or have we lost something that was good about those old days, a way of being together and caring about each other? You decide. Me? I'm still thinking about it.
Allebei wilt je ween afvlammen, boy.
Allebei
wilt je ween afvlammen, boy.
Allebei
En je wilt je ween afvlammen, boy.